I will immediately engage in extensive consultations across different sectors and political formations and other Kenyans, both in public and private, with the aim of setting up a broad-based government that will assist me in accelerating and expediting the necessary, urgent, and irreversible implementation of the program that we have, including other radical measures and programs.
And of course, that statement resulted in what I would call a clean sweep of the ODM party.
Right.
Sam, 2 deputy party leaders, chairman of the party, and the leader of minority, all of them, as we say, walking the floor, unavuka sakafu kwa upande wetu wa mjadala kwa mwendo wa aste aste. Jamila, unfortunately, is not here to translate what that means.
She's well represented.
But yeah, I mean, so new guys in cabinet?
Yes.
From the opposition?
Right. Before I mention about the 4 quite top officials of ODM, let's just quickly look at the academic qualifications and the backgrounds of all these nominees. And it appears that majority of them are in law. Professor Kindiki, law. Aden Duale, Bachelor of Education, and of course with a Master's in Business Administration. Soipan Tuya, Law. Rebecca Miano, Law. Davis Chirchir, Computer Science. Alice Wahome, Law. Salim Vuria, Agribusiness Management. Alfred Mutua, Communications. JB Muturi, Law. Murkomen, Law. Julius Migoso Gamba to Education, Law. Dr. Deborah Mlongo Baraz, of course, field of medicine. Dr. Andrew Muihia, Agriculture. Foundation in Agriculture. Eric Murithi, Engineer, Water, that is Civil Engineering in Water. Dr. Margaret Nyambura Ndungu, first degree, Information Science. Can I just admit that we studied the same thing with her, if that helps? Ali Hassan Joho, I don't know.
Not on the list.
I am not in the list.
Are you
No, I'm asking a substantive question.
Okay.
Ali Hassan Joho.
You studied the same thing.
Okay, former governor, Mombasa County. Stella Soilangat, Bachelor of Arts, Political Science. John Badi, BCom, CPA. Wycliffe Oparanya, accountant. Opio Wandai, Bachelor of Science, Agriculture. And of course, lately, law. Yeah, so, I mean, when you look at, there appears to be several lawyers in cabinet. And then, of course, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, is a land economist. So, these are CVs that will have to be perused by the committee that will be vetting these nominees. But more importantly, if you have to look at, for instance, the 4
yes.
names from ODM.
Yes.
John Mbadi, of course, has been very vocal on matters management of public finances in this country.
Right.
Has spoken heavily on management of the public debt, taxation in the country. Of course, you heard him when he was speaking before Parliament and talking about this skunk.
Yeah, actually,
that they were going to give to the president to deal with.
Perhaps we should listen to that. That's soundbite number 12 with John Mbadi then as in a completely different position.
Looking at this cabinet in totality, I have my fears. We are approving, if we do approve, we are approving a cabinet that is not so competent. We are approving a cabinet that I think the mindset of the appointing authority was not on service delivery. This is not a cabinet that is going to bring economic revolution in this country. We have a choice to make either decision to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto his skunk. Let us not interfere with it. We give it to him. He has asked for it. Let us give him his cabinet. We know he's going to run the government from State House. These are not people who can run a government. Apart from a few individuals who are not even more than 8, the rest are incompetent, unqualified, have integrity issues, are people who cannot deliver this country from where it is to the next level that we want the country to move in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will oppose most of the names.
Your time is up.
Well, what a different time. At the time, give him his skunk, I will oppose most of the names. Now it's his name that is, sort of on the table for vetting. But what a shift, again, in less than 2 years. This was the statement. In accepting the nomination, he, and I quote, said he wholesomely and with gratitude accepts the nomination by His Excellency, the President. What a difference less than 2 years makes, Sam.
And I feel for him because all those things that he has been speaking about, including the mismanagement of the economy by the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Taxes, he's been with you on Daybreak.
Yes,
and
on
spoken
several
about,
occasions that we've spoken about that. Now, all that is on his shoulders.
Now his skunk, perhaps?
Well, I think so. Because you can imagine now he has to explain to the president. The president needs to deliver. Remember, in his statement why he dismissed the cabinet was squarely about we need to expedite the delivery of the promises made before the election. So it falls on him that whatever Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, although his experience was not able to deliver, FCPA, rather CPA John Mbadi, with a background in BCom accounting, will have to respond to that. So when he is being vetted, he'll have to answer some of those questions, and especially the management of the economy, how to deal with the financing, especially of the budget. Already the National Treasury is proposing to raise the deficit to 761 billion shillings because the finance bill 2024 is no longer available. There's a budget hole that needs to be filled. How do they finance it? Is it through borrowing externally, borrowing locally, over 400 billion shillings that is supposed to be borrowed locally? So that again will increase the public debt. That is what John Mbadi is going to deal with.
And if you recall, even I believe it was when he was with you on Daybreak, when he spoke about raising taxes isn't the way. Now, it will be interesting to see what sort of alternatives that he will come up with to finance, that deficit that exists. But then, again, he's not the only one. You've got, Wycliffe Oparanya in there. And we played his soundbite, a little earlier at the start of this program, speaking quite categorically against the Hustler Fund, saying, ingewekwa mali ingesaidia uchumi hii, and not in the Hustler Fund. Linus, so let's look at this. What is it with people who have been on the other side accepting these nominations, who have distanced themselves from the president's style of leadership, from his priorities, who less than 2 years ago, or maybe just about 2 years ago now, because that was the pre-campaign period, were actually campaigning on a completely different platform with their own manifesto that they were trying to tell us was going to be different and better than the current one. And now here they are, walking into, this administration. In fact, before you can answer that, I'd like us to then, find that soundbite by former Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho. I mean, these were people who were, speaking very strongly on one end. If we have that, maybe we can listen to it. And maybe you can carry on, and when we do, we'll find it and play it. Oh, we do. Let's listen.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje ongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro. Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
Look, what we've been witnessing is fresh and new illustrations of the distance between principle and ideology in Kenya. It's so huge. It's almost actually an integrity issue where, politicians say one thing and do completely a different one. Isn't it a mother of all ironies that Hustler Fund, which the Azimio coalition dismissed as tokenism, is now in their hands? It would really, it will really be interesting to see how Oparanya, if approved by Parliament, will be handling that. So in Kenya, really, we don't take what politicians say they don't mean what they say sometimes. When the moment calls, when it's about political power, when it's about an appointment, then principle flies right through the window. And I think that's what look at what these new appointees from ODM literally have to do. Their first task in office is to swallow their words. What you've said all this time, what you've stood for all this time. You have to walk as far back as possible. Ali Hassan Joho today was hosting President William Ruto in Mombasa. He went in this evening. And the crowds are out there and all that to celebrate the appointment of the nomination, rather, to cabinet. So principle is the biggest casualty in moments like this. Yeah. But then let's look at the ministries that ODM has been given. When I saw the nomination of John Mbadi to Treasury as the next CS for Treasury, my memory went right back to Zimbabwe in 2009 when there was this forced coalition between Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF and the Movement for Democratic Change of Morgan Tsvangirai. Yeah. And what did Robert Mugabe do now with Tsvangirai as Prime Minister? He threw, and you know the situation of the economy was really bad in Zimbabwe at the time. And the Ministry of Finance was given to Tendai Biti, the Secretary General of the party. Yeah. Isn't it an irony that many years later in Kenya, the chairman of ODM is now in charge of the Ministry of Finance? It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that is navigated. But overall, and I watched earlier this morning a panel hosted by Trevor, and the emphasis that the appointment of a cabinet secretary is a prerogative of the president. He can pick anyone to be a cabinet secretary. So let's see. I mean, if President Ruto thought Mbadi will do a better job than Professor Njuguna Ndongo, then this is what Kenyans will be watching for in the near future. I
want to talk about what this then means for things like accountability and oversight. One of the things the protesters have been raising, one of the issues, is that of parliament capture by the executive. Now, if we walk down what happened since President William Ruto, his victory at the ballot was upheld by the courts, and then, of course, now began the process of starting to form his cabinet and his administration. See what happened in Parliament, UDA and the numbers and how that quickly changed. UDM, that party, of course, moved over in support of UDA and the Kenya Kwanza coalition. Jubilee followed suit some months later. Now you've got ODM. In as much as they say, well, those are there in their personal capacities. But come on, I mean, these are the top leaders of what was still remains, the biggest, minority party or opposition party, if you like. And you take the top leadership. Where does this leave processes of oversight? I mean, you hear even other MPs saying, no, we will, those in ODM faction saying in the National Assembly, those names will be passed, the vetting will go smoothly and they will then be appointed as cabinet secretaries. But what does this mean? This is the issue about Parliament's capture by the executive. So now you've had yet another party seemingly disintegrating because the Secretary General of the party says one thing, and his party chair, is in cabinet or will be by the end of next week if the vetting is successful. But where are we with this issue of oversight and accountability, particularly on the floor of the House, Sam?
You know, in the next few days, you'll hear that Parliament is the House of Oversight, and they can do that, whether they are in the opposition or, whether they're in the minority party or the majority party. So you hear a lot of philosophizing of that statement. And for sure, that's what's supposed to be. But the past few years, we've been hearing that, as you said, that Parliament has been captured, that Parliament is a rubber stamp of the executive. And indeed, even if you recall the cabinet, should I say the outgoing or the former cabinet, let me say former cabinet, even during the vetting exercise itself, while minority party, where Opiyo Wandayi was the leader of minority and also sitting in that vetting team, they had a minority report indicating that they were rejecting the nomination of Mithika Linturi and Aisha Jumwa. But also the report, the entire committee had stated that they reject the appointment of, or the nomination of Penina Malonza, which was eventually changed. And who changed it? It is the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah, at that time. So eventually what the president had given to the House came back to him without blemish, and actually went on to be appointed as was. So really, then that question about, so the leader of minority is going to cabinet, the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee that really oversees institutions within the executive is also going to the executive. You're leaving there people that are going to replace in those positions. So there's a question that has to be asked here of what remains about that. And I've seen the statement by Raila Odinga indicating that indeed there is no deal, there's no coalition between Kenya Kwanza and or even UDA and the ODM. So in as much as that may be on paper true, you can already see the movements that would appear that there's working together, at least what can be seen by the movement of the 4 nominees from the ODM. But there is something else that I would think ODM is trying to secure. Let them go as individuals so that also you retain the minority positions in Parliament, because were it to be decided that ODM has joined Kenya Kwanza, then most of those committees, oversight committees where ODM chairs, the likes of Public Accounts Committee that John Mbadi chairs, then they would actually not go to ODM if it were to be said that actually they're working with the government. So those are positions that would go to the other minority parties, for instance, the Wiper Party. So it is important for them to secure that, and I think that's what exactly they are doing.
Is that, sorry, the attempt that Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General of ODM Party, was saying? I believe he was on Daybreak today. Let's listen.
There is a difference between knowledge and blessing. When we issued the statement that we issued 2 days ago, we said that any member of ODM who's made themselves available for joining or appointment to government would be doing that in the individual capacity and without the blessing of the party. Because as a party, if we're going to take collective responsibility for a decision, it has to be a decision that is reached at, by the party. I don't speak for myself, Trevor. And I want Ojenda to understand that by the time we get to November of this year, I will be the longest serving SG of ODM. You do not stay in that position by issuing statements that you have not consulted about or not sanctioned by any organ of the party. I don't speak for myself. When I don the cap of SG, I speak for organs of the party, decisions that have been made by organs of the party. So did we know that people were negotiating with Ruto? Yes, we knew. Was it something that was being done officially or formally through the party structures? No.
Right. So, I mean, that is going to be very interesting on what happens to Parliament. But I think they also have an opportunity. The House itself, they have a great opportunity because there will be a by-election, at least in Ugunja, if Opiyo Wandayi is confirmed to be a cabinet secretary for matters energy and petroleum development. There will be a new name going to the House because John Mbadi is a nominee. But I don't know how long that takes. Remember, we don't have IBC commissioners to fill those positions. So it may take a while until you have a commission that is able to even publish the name replacing John Mbadi. But Parliament has an opportunity to at least secure their place. and their legacy as the 13th Parliament, because at this point in time when members of the ODM, whether by themselves or as representatives of the party, are working with the governing party, Parliament can only be judged as itself now.
Yeah.
Are they just going to be rubber stamping what John Mbadi will be presenting to the House in terms of budget estimates and finance bill of 2025?
Right. Yes, Dinas.
Look, I want to look at the politics of what we are witnessing here, because I think it would be wrong to actually imagine this is just about the salvation of the country. It's also about the salvation of the political administration. I'd mentioned earlier that President Ruto is also doing this for his own survival, and I think the Standard newspaper had the same headline today talking about turning to Raila Odinga for survival. The fact is the last 1 month has been a challenging one for this administration, and for anybody to take it lightly would actually be irresponsible if you are in the political establishment. Because when a situation rolls out to the extent that you have to bring out the military to the streets, then there is actually a threat to the continued survival of that administration. And so what the president today has done, forget about the dockets, is to first of all survive politically.
Yeah.
But I actually believe that the genesis is can be traced to even the period preceding the revolt by the Gen Zs. It didn't just start with the, remember the Gen Z protest began on the 18th of June. But there was a lot that was happening before that.
Yeah.
First, there was this disquiet about the state of the economy. And the president was very, very quickly getting a cold shoulder in traditional bases, whether you're talking about Mount Kenya or even the Rift Valley, where the people are asking about the direction of the country in terms of the economy, cost of living, and all that. And then remember the friction that then came with the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. And what happened was basically starting to snowball into a major political war. And remember in this country that political battles very, very quickly normally take a regional shape. And I'll go back to my favorite illustration of the mountain, the valley, and the lake.
Yeah.
Now, these three geographical features travel in this quad bike called the political Kenya. And the quad bike only has space for two. It can either carry the mountain and the lake, or the rift, the valley and the lake, but only two at a time. This has been somehow the fate of politics and the shape of politics between the mountain, the lake, and the valley. Now, if you just want to quickly illustrate that, when the immediate former president was in office, Uhuru Kenyatta, he reached out, he did a handshake. And what did the handshake do? It displaced the valley, because the lake and the mountain got together. And remember before that, the valley and the mountain got together, and who had to stay out? The lake.
The lake, yeah.
Now, we are back there again. The mountain and the valley had been coexisting until this talk of AU started. And we then started seeing some disquiet.
1 shilling, 1 vote.
Yeah, 1 man, 1 shilling. The mountain was starting to say, hey, what's going on here? Now, this cabinet reshuffle, it's only a matter of time before it comes out as a formal disquiet that, hey, the valley and the lake have gotten together and the mountain is disadvantaged. That's the reality of our politics right from independence. Whether you're talking about Jaramogi and Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta and Moi coming together, and therefore Jaramogi had to leave the scene. Moi and for a long time, actually, the lake the valley and the mountain for 24 years largely. And remember, just before he left office, Moi tried to mix up these features. It doesn't work. Yeah. It snowballed. Remember when the National Development Party of Odinga was dissolved to join KANU, so that he gets Odinga to support Uhuru Kenyatta as the candidate in 2002. It didn't work. Again, the lake reached out to the mountain in a separate route, and the valley was kicked out in 2002. I think using the valley, lake, and mountain is very safe language, recommended language if you don't want to be in trouble with the National Cohesion Commission. Yeah.
Interesting. Look, so next week there'll be a marathon vetting, 4 days back to back, from Thursday next week through to Sunday. We see what happens, and it will be interesting to see some of the memoranda